This moment is not accidental, and your presence here is not random. There are times when heaven speaks gently, and there are times when heaven interrupts. What is happening right now is not a whisper you can postpone or a feeling you can ignore. This is a divine interruption, urgent, intentional, and heavy with eternal significance. Archangel Michael and Jesus are not observing from a distance. They are calling out with intensity because something is being released in this very moment, and your response to it carries weight beyond what you can see. This is not meant to scare you, but it is meant to awaken you. Heaven does not plead unless the moment truly matters. There are rare windows in time when the spiritual realm draws close to the earthly one, when guidance is released with precision, and when unseen doors begin to shift. This is one of those windows. You may have felt it before you even arrived here, a pressure in your spirit, a quiet unease, or a sense that something important was pulling at your attention. That feeling is not anxiety, and it is not imagination. It is recognition. Your spirit knows when heaven is near, and right now, heaven is near because a decision is forming in your heart, whether you are conscious of it or not. Archangel Michael stands as a defender of divine order and a guardian in moments of spiritual conflict. When his presence carries urgency, it is because resistance has reached a critical point, not resistance from heaven, but resistance forming within human hearts that are tired, distracted, or slowly disengaging. And Jesus, whose voice is always rooted in love, is not commanding in this moment. He is pleading. That alone should stop you. Love does not beg without cause. Mercy does not raise its voice unless time is limited. This message is not meant for someone who is simply passing through. It is meant for the one standing at a crossroads, even if they have not named it yet. You may be standing there quietly, wondering whether to keep believing, whether to keep obeying, or whether to slowly pull back because waiting has become painful. You may feel worn down by unanswered prayers or discouraged by delays that seem unfair. But heaven is speaking now because guidance delayed can become guidance lost, and what feels like patience can quietly turn into spiritual distance. When you are told not to walk away, it is not only about physically leaving or closing this moment. Walking away often happens inwardly. It happens when hope dims just enough to stop expecting. It happens when obedience begins to feel optional. It happens when faith is postponed with the assumption that you will return to it later. Heaven is warning you because later does not always carry the same open door that exists right now. There is a door of heaven's guidance opening in this moment. This is not symbolic language, it is spiritual reality. Guidance is not only direction, it is protection, clarity, timing, and alignment. When that door is open, confusion loses its grip, fear weakens, and the next step becomes visible even when the path ahead is difficult. But when that door closes, not out of cruelty but consequence, many mistake the silence that follows for peace. It is not peace, it is absence. Jesus is not pleading because he lacks authority. He is pleading because he sees what happens when mercy is ignored. He sees lives drift not into sudden darkness, but into slow disconnection, where clarity fades, sensitivity dulls, and direction becomes uncertain. And Archangel Michael stands alert because spiritual conflict intensifies when divine guidance is resisted. This is why the tone is urgent. This is why it feels heavy yet compassionate at the same time. Love is warning you before loss becomes permanent. You are hearing this because heaven believes you can still respond. That alone should move you deeply. If the door were already sealed, there would be no message. Silence would be the only response. But you are not being met with silence. You are being met with a call, a plea, and an opportunity to realign. That means the door is still open, but it will not remain open indefinitely. Do not underestimate how rare moments like this are. Heaven does not interrupt often, but when it does, it is because something irreversible approaches if nothing changes. This is not about being perfect. It is about being attentive. It is about choosing not to walk away when your spirit is being addressed directly. Something is being released right now. Clarity, instruction, correction, and protection. But it can only be received by a heart that is willing to stay present. As this message unfolds, let this truth settle within you. You are not being accused. You are being invited. You are not being condemned. You are being warned because you are valued. And the fact that you are still listening means the interruption reached you in time. What happens next depends on whether you lean in or turn away. But heaven has already spoken. You did not arrive here by accident, and it is important that you hear this clearly before anything else settles into your heart. Out of countless possible moments, distractions, and directions your attention could have gone, you were led here at this exact time. That alone speaks. Heaven does not waste alignment. When timing converges like this, it is because something is being positioned for you to recognize. Not later, not eventually, but now. There are unseen movements that guide steps, pauses, and even moments of stillness, and you are standing inside one of them right now. Many people believe divine encounters arrive with loud signs or unmistakable miracles, but more often they arrive quietly, woven into ordinary moments that feel personal but unexplained. You may have felt drawn here without knowing why. Something told you to listen, to stay, to give this moment your attention. That pull is not curiosity. It is alignment. It is what happens when heaven nudges a soul that is still reachable, still responsive, still capable of choosing differently than before. Think carefully about what has been happening around you lately. Delays that forced you to slow down. Conversations that stirred questions you couldn't ignore. A restlessness that wouldn't let you settle, even when everything seemed fine on the surface. These are not random patterns. They are signals. Heaven often prepares the heart before releasing guidance, because guidance without readiness is often ignored. You are here because preparation has already begun. This moment is also exposing a truth many struggle to face. Walking away rarely looks dramatic. It often looks like postponing attention, minimizing importance, or convincing yourself you will return to spiritual matters when life feels less demanding. But the reason this message reaches you now is because that quiet drifting has already been noticed. Not with anger, but with concern. Heaven intervenes early, not late, when there is still room for redirection. You may wonder why the urgency feels personal, as if the message is aimed directly at you. That is because divine guidance is not mass-produced. It is intimate. It meets people where they are, not where they pretend to be. The reason this feels close is because it is close. Your life is not overlooked. Your questions are not dismissed, and your hesitation has been seen. This is why the timing matters. Heaven speaks when the heart is listening, even if the mind is still unsure. Right now, something within you is deciding whether to fully engage or quietly retreat. That decision may seem small, but it carries weight. Engagement opens pathways. Retreat closes them. And while heaven is patient, it is also precise. Moments like this are invitations, but invitations do expire. Not because love withdraws, but because seasons shift, and guidance moves with seasons. This is where your participation matters. Listening is not passive. Staying attentive is an act of humility. Choosing not to scroll away, not to dismiss what resonates, not to silence the stirring in your spirit. These are responses. and responses create movement. Heaven responds to those who respond. That is why you are being asked, even now, to acknowledge what you are sensing instead of brushing it aside. If this message is speaking to you, do not keep it to yourself in silence. Interaction is not about numbers. It is about alignment. When you respond outwardly, you are also responding inwardly. If something in you recognizes the weight of this moment, let that recognition be visible. Take a moment to engage. Like this message, share it with someone who may also need this interruption, and leave a comment that reflects what stirred in you. These actions are not casual. They are declarations that you are choosing awareness over avoidance. And if you have not yet committed to staying connected to messages like this, now is the time. Subscribing is not about following a channel. It is about choosing to remain open to guidance when it comes again. You are not meant to navigate alone, and repeated alignment matters more than isolated moments. Staying connected keeps your heart positioned to hear when heaven speaks again. There is something powerful about acknowledging, even quietly, I was meant to hear this. That acknowledgement shifts posture. It turns resistance into openness and uncertainty into expectation. Heaven responds to expectation. It moves toward those who are willing to say yes before they have all the answers. You may not yet see where this path leads, but clarity rarely arrives before obedience. It follows it. The reason guidance is being released now is because a step is near, and steps require willingness before direction becomes clear. What you are sensing is the nearness of instruction, not confusion. Confusion fades when attention remains steady. As this part comes to a close, hold this truth firmly. Being led here is already evidence that the door is not closed. It is evidence that heaven is still speaking to you, still inviting you forward, still willing to guide. The only question left is whether you will continue to engage or slowly step back into distraction. What comes next will build on this moment. Your attention now shapes what you are able to receive next. The alignment has already begun. There is a warning being released now, and it is not loud because it does not need to be. It is precise. It is directed. It is aimed at the hesitant heart, the one that still believes, but no longer responds with urgency. Archangel Michael did not bring this warning out of impatience, but out of protection. When heaven sees a soul standing too long between decision and delay, it intervenes before hesitation turns into hardening. What you are hearing now is not judgment. It is a shield being raised before damage occurs. Spiritual battles do not always appear as chaos. Often, they appear as comfort, a quiet settling into later, a convincing thought that says there is time, that nothing urgent is required, that guidance can wait. This is how resistance operates, not by attacking belief, but by dulling responsiveness. Archangel Michael stands against this subtle erosion because he knows that when the heart delays obedience long enough, it begins to confuse stillness with safety. There is activity around you that you cannot see, but you can feel its effects. Distraction feels heavier. Discernment feels slower. The sharpness you once had in sensing right and wrong feels muted. This is not because you have failed. It is because hesitation creates exposure. When guidance is offered and not received, space opens, not empty space but contested space. That is where confusion attempts to settle. The warning is simple but serious. Do not let spiritual numbness convince you that nothing is happening. Something is happening. Choices you postpone today quietly shape your sensitivity tomorrow. Archangel Michael steps forward at moments like this because delay, left unaddressed, becomes pattern. Pattern becomes posture. And posture determines what you are able to receive from heaven. This message is not accusing you of disobedience. It is alerting you to danger you may not recognize yet. There is a difference. Heaven warns before loss, not after. That is mercy. You are being told now because you still have the ability to respond fully, not partially, not someday, but presently. The longer hesitation lingers, the easier it becomes to rationalize distance from divine direction. You may feel torn, wanting to stay aligned, but tired of waiting. Wanting to obey, but unsure what obedience even looks like anymore. That inner tension is exactly why this warning arrives. Heaven does not abandon people in confusion. It confronts confusion with clarity. And clarity often feels uncomfortable before it feels freeing. Archangel Michael's presence signals that protection is available, but protection is activated through response. Angels do not override human will. They support it when it moves toward alignment. When you hesitate, protection waits. When you respond, protection advances. This is not fear-based truth. It is order. Heaven functions through order, and order requires cooperation. Be honest with yourself in this moment. Where have you delayed what you already sensed was right? Where have you silenced conviction by telling yourself it was not urgent? These are not questions meant to shame you. They are meant to wake you. Conviction ignored does not disappear. It fades into background noise. And when that happens, guidance becomes harder to recognize even when it is present. The danger of spiritual numbness is not sudden collapse. It is gradual disconnection. Prayer becomes routine instead of relational. Discernment becomes opinion. Obedience becomes optional. None of this happens overnight. It happens through repeated hesitation. That is why this warning matters. You are being called back to sensitivity before numbness settles in fully. Right now, there is still warmth where there could be coldness. There is still awareness where there could be indifference. That is why this moment matters so deeply. Archangel Michael is not announcing defeat. He is declaring that intervention has arrived in time. But intervention requires your attention. It requires you to choose awareness over avoidance. Do not mistake this warning for rejection. It is the opposite. You are being addressed because you are still reachable. You are still chosen. You are still within the reach of guidance. But reach is not the same as reception. Reception requires willingness. As this part reaches its end, understand this. What you do with this warning determines how clearly you will hear what comes next. If you stay open, protection strengthens. If you retreat inwardly, confusion grows louder. This is not about fear. It is about alignment. Type "I am awake" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 742 is now activated. As this warning settles into your spirit, hear this invitation clearly. When you support this mission, you are not funding content. You are helping light reach hearts that are standing at the same crossroads you just faced. I hear the Lord saying, "Those who sow into my voice will never lack direction." This is not charity. This is seed placed into living soil. I am personally inviting you to act now, because obedience delayed can miss the harvest. If this message protected you, your support can protect someone else. You super thanks. Join as a member, or release your seed through the PayPal link in the description or the PayPal QR code shown on screen. Do it now, and may heaven respond to your obedience with multiplied clarity and favor. What you are about to hear must be understood correctly, because misunderstanding it could cause you to miss the heart of what heaven is doing. This is not condemnation. This is compassion wrapped in urgency. When Jesus pleads, it is not because he is angry, and it is not because grace has run out. It is because love sees further than comfort ever could. His plea carries tenderness, but it also carries truth. because truth that is softened too much becomes easy to ignore. Jesus does not warn to intimidate. He warns to preserve. Throughout every moment where humanity stood on the edge of loss, his voice rose first, not to punish, but to protect. What you are sensing now is that same voice, reaching you before consequences take root. There is a difference between correction and rejection, and many confuse the two. Correction says, "Come back while you still can." Rejection says nothing at all. Silence is far more dangerous than warning. The plea you are hearing now is born from love that refuses to abandon you to slow spiritual drift. Jesus sees how easy it is for people to convince themselves they are still close to God while quietly moving further away. He sees how faith can remain in words while obedience fades in action. And he intervenes not when the distance is complete, but when return is still possible. There are moments when mercy whispers, and moments when mercy raises its voice. This is the latter, not because you are far gone, but because you are close enough to be redirected. Jesus did not plead with those who have already shed their hearts completely. He pleads with those who are still listening but struggling to respond. That is why this feels personal. It is personal. You may have believed that divine warnings always come with anger or threat, but that is not how Jesus operates. His warnings are filled with sorrow, not rage. Sorrow at what could be lost if nothing changes. Sorrow at how many people mistake delay for patience and comfort for peace. His plea is heaven's last kindness before consequences become unavoidable. Understand this clearly. Doors do not close because God suddenly withdraws love. Doors close because seasons change. Guidance flows differently in different seasons, and when a season of instruction ends, it does not always return in the same way. Jesus is pleading now because the season you are in still carries access, still carries clarity, still carries protection. But seasons do not wait forever. There is something deeply serious about the phrase "don't walk away." It assumes movement. It assumes choice. Walking away is not always dramatic rebellion. Sometimes it is simply choosing not to engage anymore. Choosing distraction over discernment. Choosing comfort over conviction. Choosing silence over response. These choices may feel small, but they accumulate weight over time. Jesus sees the end from the beginning. He sees how today's hesitation becomes tomorrow's confusion, how today's avoidance becomes tomorrow's loss of clarity. That is why his plea feels urgent. It is not rooted in fear, it is rooted in foresight. Love that sees ahead must speak ahead. You may be wondering why this plea comes now, when you feel tired, uncertain, or stretched thin. The answer is simple. Those are the moments when people are most likely to disengage. Spiritual withdrawal rarely happens during chaos. It happens during weariness, during waiting, during disappointment that has not yet been healed. Jesus addresses you now because he sees weariness trying to make decisions it was never meant to make. Do not interpret this plea as pressure. Pressure demands performance. Love invites honesty. Jesus is not asking you to pretend you are strong. He is asking you not to give up quietly. He is asking you to stay present long enough for renewal to reach you. Walking away may feel like relief in the moment, but it carries consequences you cannot yet see. This is why mercy speaks before judgment ever does. Judgment arrives when choices are complete. Mercy speaks when choices are still forming. You are hearing mercy. You are hearing a plea meant to interrupt your assumptions, not accuse your heart. Heaven is not disappointed in you. Heaven is concerned for you. Let this truth settle. The very fact that you are being warned means you are still within reach. Still valued. Still seen. Still loved. If you were beyond guidance, there would be no plea, no message, no interruption. But here you are, being addressed with care and seriousness, because heaven believes you are worth a warning. Do not rush past this moment. Do not minimize what you are sensing. The plea of Jesus is not something to analyze away. It is something to receive. He is asking you to stay, to listen, to respond, not because he needs you to, but because you need what comes next. What follows this plea is not punishment. It is direction. It is restoration. It is clarity. But it can only unfold if you do not walk away now. The door is still open. The voice is still speaking. And love is still reaching for you. What comes next will show you why this plea matters as much as it does. There is a door being spoken of in this message, and it is important that you understand what that door truly represents. When heaven speaks of guidance, it is not referring to vague feelings or occasional signs. Heaven's guidance is active, intentional, and precise. It is the steady flow of direction that keeps your steps aligned, your decisions protected, and your spirit anchored even when circumstances are unstable. This guidance does not force you forward, but it does illuminate the way, step by step, moment by moment. The door of heaven's guidance opens when alignment is present. Alignment does not mean perfection. It means willingness. It means a heart that remains responsive rather than resistant. Many people assume guidance arrives first and obedience follows, but in the spiritual order, obedience often unlocks guidance. The door opens inward before it opens outward. When the heart says yes, direction begins to flow. This is why some feel stalled even though they pray often. Prayer without responsiveness becomes repetition. Guidance responds to surrender, not routine. When you yield, even before you fully understand, the door begins to open. Not all at once, not with overwhelming clarity, but with enough light for the next step. Heaven rarely reveals the full path. It reveals what is necessary to keep you moving. The key to this door is not effort. It is trust. Trust that what heaven asks will not harm you. Trust that obedience will not strip you of identity, but refine it. Many hesitate because they fear losing control. But the truth is, guidance does not remove control. It redirects it. It places your decisions under wisdom rather than impulse, under foresight rather than fear. When the door of guidance is open, even challenges carry instruction. Delays teach patience. Detours build discernment. Waiting seasons deepen dependence. Nothing is wasted. But when the door is closed, even blessings can feel confusing. Success feels hollow. Choices feel uncertain. Progress lacks peace. This is why guidance is not optional. It is essential. Some people wonder why guidance seems inconsistent in their lives. They feel clarity one season and silence the next. Often, this shift is not because heaven stopped speaking, but because alignment shifted. Guidance flows where attention remains steady. When attention drifts, clarity dims. This is not punishment. It is consequence. Heaven honors human will even when it leads away from direction. The door opens when the heart stays soft. Softness is not weakness. It is sensitivity. A soft heart notices conviction instead of resisting it. It responds to correction instead of defending itself. It remains teachable even after disappointment. This kind of heart keeps the door open because it stays in relationship, not just belief. Heaven's guidance also opens through humility. Humility does not mean thinking less of yourself. It means trusting God more than your own assumptions. Many doors remain closed not because people are disobedient, but because they are certain they already understand. Certainty can quietly block instruction. Humility invites it. When this door opens, guidance often comes in subtle ways. A sentence that stays with you, a pause that feels necessary, a discomfort that prevents you from moving too fast. These are not obstacles, they are safeguards. Heaven guides not only toward opportunity, but away from danger you cannot yet see. It is also important to understand that guidance requires maintenance. An open door is not a permanent condition. It is a relational one. It remains open as long as responsiveness remains active. When responsiveness fades, the door begins to narrow, not suddenly, but gradually. This is why warnings are given before closure, not after. You may be standing before this door now, uncertain whether it is truly open for you. Let this settle your heart. If you are being addressed, the door is open. Guidance does not call from behind closed doors. It calls while access still exists. What matters is how you respond while the door is still within reach. This door does not open through striving or fear. It opens through surrender, through choosing alignment even when answers are incomplete, through staying present when walking away feels easier. Heaven does not demand perfection to guide you. It asks for honesty, attention, and willingness. Do not assume you have missed your moment simply because you hesitated. Hesitation acknowledged can be healed. What closes doors is not hesitation, but refusal to respond once awareness arrives. Awareness has arrived. That is why this message matters. The door is not closed, but it is asking for your attention. As this part draws to a close, understand this truth. Heaven's guidance is not distant or reserved for a select few. It is available to those who remain responsive. The door opens where trust is placed. It stays open where obedience continues. And right now, you are closer to that door than you may realize. Walking away from divine guidance rarely happens in a single, dramatic moment. It happens quietly, subtly, almost invisibly, woven into everyday choices that feel harmless at the time. Most people do not wake up one day and decide to disconnect spiritually. Instead, they drift. And drifting is dangerous precisely because it feels gentle. This part of the message is meant to expose those subtle ways people walk away without even realizing they are doing it. One of the most common ways is distraction. Not obvious rebellion, not outright denial, just constant noise. Life becomes full, schedules become packed, and spiritual attentiveness is pushed to the edges. Time once set aside for reflection is replaced with endless tasks, scrolling, or mental exhaustion. Nothing feels wrong, yet something essential is slowly being crowded out. Guidance does not shout over constant noise. When distraction becomes a lifestyle, clarity fades quietly. Another subtle way people walk away is delay disguised as wisdom. Thoughts like, "I'll deal with this later," or "now isn't the right time," feel responsible and reasonable. But delay becomes dangerous when it follows conviction. When you already sensed a direction, a correction, or a call, postponing response trains the heart to resist future promptings. Over time, the sense of urgency weakens, not because the call disappeared, but because the heart learned to ignore it. Comfort is another powerful drift. Comfort convinces you that nothing needs to change. It whispers that stability is more important than alignment, and that peace means avoiding discomfort. But comfort often keeps people stuck in places they have outgrown. Divine guidance frequently disrupts comfort, not to harm, but to move you forward. When comfort becomes the priority, obedience becomes optional. That also plays a subtle role. Not the kind of doubt that asks honest questions, but the kind that slowly undermines trust. It sounds like, "What if I'm wrong?" Or what if I misunderstood? These thoughts, when entertained too long, can paralyze response. Instead of seeking clarity, the heart freezes. Doubt, left unchallenged, slowly replaces faith with hesitation, making guidance feel uncertain even when it is clear. Another quiet drift happens through comparison. Watching others pass can cause you to question your own. You begin to wonder why your journey looks slower, harder, or less rewarding. Comparison erodes contentment and weakens trust. Instead of listening for personal guidance, attention shifts outward. Divine direction is personal, but comparison pressures people to abandon it for paths that were never meant for them. Busyness is often mistaken for productivity, but it can be a form of avoidance. Staying constantly occupied leaves no space to hear what requires stillness. Many people stay busy not because they are purposeful, but because stillness would force them to face what they have been avoiding. Guidance often comes in quiet moments, and busyness blocks those moments effectively. Emotional fatigue is another overlooked factor. When someone has been disappointed repeatedly, hope begins to feel risky. To protect themselves, they lower expectations. They stop listening as closely. They stop responding as quickly. Emotional self-protection can quietly become spiritual withdrawal. Heaven understands weariness, but weariness should lead to rest, not retreat. When fatigue makes decisions, guidance suffers. There is also the drift of familiarity. When spiritual language, practices, or messages become routine, they lose perceived urgency. Familiarity breeds complacency. What once felt sacred begins to feel ordinary. The heart stops leaning in. This is one of the most dangerous drifts because it hides behind habit. People continue outward practices while inward attentiveness fades. Another subtle way people walk away is through self-reliance. It often begins with growth and confidence, but slowly turns into independence from guidance. Decisions are made quickly, prayer becomes brief, and reliance shifts inward. Self-reliance is not evil, but when it replaces dependence on divine direction, it closes the door to deeper guidance. Heaven does not compete with pride, it waits for humility. Justification is another quiet exit. When conviction arises, the mind quickly provides reasons not to respond. This is just how I am. Others do worse. It's not that serious. Justification dulls sensitivity. Over time, conviction becomes background noise instead of a call to action. The heart learns to explain away what it once responded to. None of these drifts happen overnight. That is why they are so dangerous. They accumulate slowly, almost invisibly. Each small step away feels insignificant, but together they create distance. The tragedy is that many people do not realize how far they have drifted until guidance feels faint or absent. This message is revealing these patterns not to accuse you, but to restore awareness. Awareness is powerful. What you can see, you can address. What you acknowledge, you can realign. The purpose of exposure is not shame. It is correction before loss becomes permanent. If any of these subtle drifts feel familiar, that does not mean you are lost. It means you are being invited back to attentiveness. Walking away often begins quietly, but so does returning. A single moment of awareness can interrupt months or years of drift. As you reflect on this, understand this truth. Recognizing the drift is already movement toward alignment. Heaven does not reveal these things to those it has abandoned. It reveals them to those it is still calling. There is a consequence to ignoring a call like this, and it must be spoken plainly, not to create fear, but to restore seriousness. Consequence does not mean sudden punishment. It does not mean collapse or catastrophe. In most cases, the consequence of ignoring divine guidance is far quieter and far more dangerous. It is the gradual loss of clarity. It is the slow fading of peace. It is the subtle weakening of spiritual protection that once felt effortless. When guidance is ignored repeatedly, something shifts internally. Sensitivity dulled. What once felt clear now feels confusing. Decisions that used to carry peace now feel heavy or uncertain. This is not because heaven has become distant, but because the heart has stopped responding in the same way. Guidance flows through responsiveness. When responsiveness fades, guidance no longer lands where it once did. One of the first consequences is loss of discernment. Discernment is not intelligence, it is spiritual perception. It is the ability to sense what is aligned and what is not, even when both options appear good. When guidance is ignored, discernment weakens. Choices begin to look equally appealing or equally confusing. People begin to rely solely on logic, emotion, or advice from others, rather than inner clarity. This is not because God stopped guiding, but because the channel has narrowed. Another consequence is the erosion of peace. Peace does not disappear grammatically. It becomes inconsistent. Moments of calm are interrupted by underlying unease. Even during success or progress, something feels off. Rest becomes harder. Stillness becomes uncomfortable. This is often misinterpreted as stress or anxiety, but at its root, it is misalignment. Peace flows most freely where guidance is honored. Protection is another area quietly affected. Divine protection does not mean the absence of difficulty, but it does mean the presence of restraint. It limits damage. It redirects danger. When guidance is followed, protection moves ahead of you. When guidance is ignored, protection does not vanish, but it no longer leads. It waits, and waiting leaves you more exposed to unnecessary struggle. There is also a loss of spiritual momentum. Progress feels harder. Effort increases, but results diminish. What once flowed begins to require strain. This is not because you are incapable, but because you are moving without the same alignment. Heaven's guidance creates momentum because it works with timing you cannot see. Without it, movement becomes exhausting. Another consequence is emotional heaviness. When conviction is ignored, it does not disappear, it turns inward. It becomes self-doubt, frustration, or numbness. The heart knows it has bypassed something important, even if the mind tries to justify it. This inner conflict drains emotional energy over time. Joy becomes harder to sustain. Gratitude feels forced. Emotional resilience weakens. Ignoring guidance also affects prayer. Prayer becomes less intimate and more functional. Words are spoken, but connection feels thin. Confidence in being heard fades. This does not mean prayer is ineffective, but it does mean the relational closeness that once energized it hath been interrupted. Guidance and prayer are deeply connected. When one is neglected, the other feels strained. Perhaps the most serious consequence is spiritual drift becoming normalized. What once felt concerning now feels ordinary. Behaviors, attitudes, or compromises that once troubled you no longer register the same way. This is not growth, it is desensitization. When sensitivity fades, course correction becomes harder because warning signs no longer feel urgent. Heaven does not remove guidance suddenly. It withdraws gradually in response to consistent disregard. This is not punishment. It is respect for human will. God does not force direction on those who repeatedly refuse it. He allows people to experience the outcome of their choices, hoping awareness will eventually return. But awareness delayed too long becomes regret. It is important to understand that these consequences are not meant to define your future. They describe what unfolds when guidance is consistently ignored, not what must happen to you. The reason this is being revealed now is because consequence can still be interrupted. Loss is not inevitable if response returns in time. You may recognize some of these effects already. A sense of distance and lack of clarity, a heaviness you cannot explain. If so, this is not condemnation. It is confirmation. Confirmation that guidance was offered and that alignment can still be restored. Awareness is the doorway back. Heaven speaks of consequence not to threaten, but to awaken. Ignoring guidance does not make God leave. It makes direction harder to hear. The door does not slam shut, it narrows. And narrow doors require intentional movement, not passive waiting. This part of the message exists to make one truth unmistakably clear. Ignoring this call will cost something. Not because God desires loss, but because alignment matters. Direction matters. Response matters. And moments like this do not repeat endlessly. Even after everything that has been revealed, hear this clearly. Mercy is not withdrawn. The warning does not mean the door is closed. It means the door is still open, but time matters. Heaven does not announce finality while grace is still active. The very fact that you are hearing this now is proof that a window of mercy remains open, and that window is not theoretical. It is present, it is available, and it is inviting response. Mercy is often misunderstood. Many believe mercy is endless tolerance, but mercy is actually opportunity. It is the space given to change direction before consequences solidify. What you are standing in right now is not pressure, it is opportunity. A final window does not mean doom is imminent. It means alignment is still possible, but delay is no longer harmless. This window of mercy exists because heaven still sees responsiveness in you. Not perfection, not certainty. Responsiveness. You are still able to feel conviction, still able to sense urgency, still able to recognize that something here matters. Those are signs of life. Spiritual numbness would not feel this weight. Indifference would not feel this pull. What you are experiencing is evidence that grace is still working. It is important to understand that mercy is not passive. It calls. It invites. It urges movement. Mercy says, turn now while clarity is still within reach. It does not chase endlessly, but it does reach decisively. And right now, mercy is reaching for you. You may feel regret rising as you reflect on moments you delayed or ignored. Do not let regret turn into shame. Shame paralyzes. Conviction mobilizes. Heaven is not asking you to relive past failures. It is asking you to respond in the present. Restoration does not begin with explanation. It begins with acknowledgement. This is what you can still do, right now. Pause inwardly and admit where you drifted. Not with excuses. Not with self-criticism. Simply with honesty. Honesty reopens flow. Alignment does not require you to undo the past. It requires you to stop running from awareness. The moment honesty returns, guidance begins to move again. Repentance is not humiliation. It is recalibration. It is the realignment of direction, not the punishment of identity. When repentance happens quickly, mercy responds quickly. This is why the window still matters. You are not being asked to prove anything, only to turn back while access remains. Understand this. Heaven does not reopen doors through emotion alone. It responds to decision. A quiet but firm inward decision carries immense spiritual weight. When you decide to stop drifting, stop delaying, stops silencing conviction. Something shifts immediately, not always outwardly but inwardly. And inward shifts change everything. This window of mercy is also protected. Archangel Michael does not step back during moments like this. He stands guard, guarding opportunity, guarding access, guarding those who choose to respond. Protection increases when repentance is sincere, because alignment restores order. Order restores flow. Flow restores clarity. Do not underestimate how quickly clarity can return once alignment is restored. Confusion that lingered for months can lift in moments. Peace that felt distant can reappear unexpectedly. Direction that seemed lost can resurface with surprising sharpness. This is not because circumstances change instantly, but because connection is restored. This is also why delay is dangerous here. Mercy windows are generous, but they are not endless. They close quietly when ignored long enough. Not with announcements, not with warnings, just with silence. That is why this moment matters. Silence is not what you are experiencing. Invitation is. If your heart feels stirred right now, that is not emotional manipulation. That is recognition. Recognition that something is still possible. Recognition that you are not too late, but you are not early either. You are on time to respond, on time to turn, on time to stay present. As you hear this, make an inward commitment to remain attentive. Do not rush ahead mentally. Do not push this aside emotionally. Stay with it. Stay open. Stay honest. You will be glad you stayed for what is about to be revealed. Type I return in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 913 is now activated. As this window of mercy stands open before you, hear this as a prophetic invitation. When you give into this mission, you are helping mercy reach someone else before their window closes. The Lord is saying, those who release into my work will never lack grace in their own turning. This is a holy moment to sow, not later, now. I am directly asking you to respond, because obedience in this hour carries multiplied impact. You super thanks, become a member, or release your seed through the PayPal link in the description or the PayPal QR code on screen. Act now, and may the same mercy that found you flow powerfully through your obedience. Heaven is not asking you to do many things right now. It is asking you to do a few simple things with sincerity and intention. When divine messages reach this level of clarity, complexity is removed. What heaven asks is rarely complicated, but it is always meaningful. The steps before you now are not meant to overwhelm you. They are meant to realign you. What you choose to do today matters more than what you promise yourself you will do someday. The first thing heaven is asking is for honesty. Not public honesty, not performative honesty, but inward honesty. You are being asked to stop negotiating with conviction, to stop softening what you already sensed clearly. Where you felt prompted, acknowledge it. Where you delayed, admit it. This is not about confession for punishment. It is about clarity for restoration. Honesty restores flow because it removes resistance. The second thing heaven is asking is attentiveness. Guidance cannot move through a divided focus. You do not need to withdraw from life or responsibilities, but you are being asked to reclaim inner attentiveness. That means listening before reacting, pausing before deciding, creating space for discernment instead of filling every moment with noise. Attentiveness is how guidance finds room to operate. The third thing is willingness, not confidence, not certainty. Willingness. Heaven does not require you to understand the full picture. It requires you to stay responsive as the picture unfolds. Willingness keeps the door open even when clarity comes gradually. Persistence closes doors faster than confusion ever could. You are also being asked to respond outwardly, not just inwardly. Response anchors intention. When you engage physically or verbally, you reinforce the decision you are making internally. This is why engagement matters in moments like this. If this message is reaching you, acknowledge it. Leave a comment that reflects your response. Not for visibility, but for alignment. Declaring awareness strengthens commitment. This is also the moment to share what you are receiving. Guidance multiplies when it is released. Someone else may be standing at the same crossroads, quietly drifting, unaware of what is at stake. Sharing this message is not about promotion. It is about intervention. When you share, you become part of heaven's reach. Staying connected matters as well. Guidance does not usually arrive once and then disappear. It unfolds over time. Subscribing is a way of choosing continued openness. It is a decision to remain positioned rather than returning to drift. Repeated exposure to truth keeps sensitivity sharp. Distance dulls it. These actions may seem simple, but simplicity does not mean insignificance. Heaven works through obedience that is quiet but consistent. What matters is not the size of the action, but the sincerity behind it. Small responses create large shifts when they are aligned. You may be tempted to overthink this moment, to analyze what you should do next week, next month, or next year. But heaven is not asking for long-term planning right now. It is asking for present response. Today's obedience carries today's grace. Tomorrow will have its own. Another thing heaven is asking is for trust in timing. Not your timing, divine timing. Some things you want resolved immediately will unfold gradually. That does not mean guidance is absent. It means it is intentional. Trust prevents impatience from turning into retreat. You are also being asked to release what no longer aligns. This may be a habit, an attitude, a relationship dynamic, or a mindset that keeps pulling you backward. You do not have to fix everything at once, but you do have to stop pretending misalignment is harmless. Awareness demands response. As you take these steps, understand this: heaven responds to movement, even imperfect movement. Waiting for perfect readiness keeps many people stuck indefinitely. Movement activates help. Movement invites reinforcement. Movement signals readiness to receive more. Do not underestimate how closely heaven is watching this moment. Not to judge, but to respond. Angels are attentive to obedience. Guidance increases when response is sincere. Protection strengthens when alignment returns. If you are wondering whether these steps truly matter, hear this clearly. What you do now determines how clearly you will hear what comes next. Attention opens revelation. Response deepens clarity. Avoidance weakens both. Stay with this moment. Do not rush past it. Do not let distraction reclaim your focus immediately. You will be glad you stayed for what is about to unfold. If this message is speaking to you, engage with it now. Like it as an act of acknowledgement. Comment as an act of response. Share it as an act of obedience. Subscribe as an act of commitment. These are not casual actions in a moment like this. They are declarations. When you respond to heaven's call, something immediate and real takes place beyond what your eyes can see. This is not symbolic language, and it is not emotional exaggeration. The unseen realm operates by order, alignment, and authority, and when your will comes back into agreement with divine direction, angelic assistance is activated. Archangel Michael does not move randomly or emotionally. His movement is triggered by alignment. Heaven responds when you respond. Angels are not distant figures observing your life from afar. They are assigned, attentive, and active where cooperation exists. When you choose obedience, especially after a season of hesitation, you send a signal that reverberates in the spiritual realm. That signal is readiness. It is agreement. It is permission. Archangel Michael, as a commander in spiritual warfare, advances when that signal is given, because resistance has shifted. Not just resistance from outside forces, but resistance within the human heart. One of the first ways angelic help activates is through protection. Protection does not always remove hardship, but it limits damage. It restrains what would otherwise escalate. Situations that once spiraled begin to stop short. Conflicts lose momentum. Threats are redirected. This happens quietly, often without your awareness, because angels specialize in prevention more than rescue. Many of the battles you never face are the result of alignment restoring protective order. Another manifestation of angelic assistance is clarity. Confusion that once lingered for weeks or months begins to lift. Decisions feel less heavy. Options separate themselves instead of blending together. This clarity is not sudden knowledge of everything ahead, but enough light to take the next step without fear. Angels often work by sharpening perception, helping you notice what matters and ignore what distracts. You may also experience an increased sense of restraint. Impulses that once controlled you lose strength. Emotional reactions slow down. Words you would have spoken before now pause at the edge of your tongue. This restraint is not suppression, it is protection. Archangel Michael's assignment includes guarding access points, especially during seasons of realignment. When you respond to guidance, those access points are secured again. It is important to understand that angelic help follows movement, not intention alone. Many people desire support but remain stationary. Heaven's order is clear. Movement invites reinforcement. When you take even a small step toward obedience, assistance meets you there. Angels do not carry you forward against your will, they strengthen you as you walk. This is why response matters more than understanding. You may notice that after alignment returns, resistance briefly intensifies. Old patterns attempt to resurface. Distractions feel louder. Doubt tries to reassert itself. This does not mean you made the wrong choice. Often, it means you made the right one. When order is restored, what benefited from disorder loses ground. Archangel Michael stands firm in these moments, preventing setbacks from becoming defeats. Angelic help also operates through timing. Opportunities align unexpectedly. Delays reveal hidden protection. Doors that once frustrated you now make sense in hindsight. Angels are deeply involved in timing because timing determines outcome. What arrives too early or too late can cause harm, even if it looks good. When you align, timing becomes guided rather than forced. Another area where angelic help becomes evident is courage. Courage does not mean fear disappears. It means fear no longer decides. Decisions that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Conversations you avoided become possible. Courage grows because support is present. Archangel Michael strengthens resolve so obedience does not feel unbearable. You are not suddenly braver. You are better supported. Angels also assist through reminders. Conviction returns sooner when you drift. Awareness activates faster. Instead of months of distance, correction happens quickly. This is mercy expressed through intervention. Heaven does not wait for collapse when alignment is present. It intervenes early, protecting progress instead of repairing damage. It is critical to understand that angelic help does not replace responsibility. It reinforces it. you are still required to choose attentiveness, humility, and responsiveness. Angels amplify alignment. They do not compensate for avoidance. When alignment is maintained, assistance remains active. When alignment fades, assistance does not disappear, it waits. Heaven respects human will completely. Consistency matters more than intensity. The steady posture of responsiveness keeps angelic activity engaged. Dramatic moments followed by long neglect weaken flow. Quiet, repeated obedience strengthens it. Heaven values continuity because continuity builds order, and order sustains protection. Do not expect angelic help to always feel dramatic or emotional. Much of it operates invisibly, through restraint, through prevention, through clarity you assume is natural but is actually assisted. Silence does not mean absence. Often, it means things are functioning as they should. What matters most is this truth: angelic help increases when alignment is sustained. Heaven responds to posture more than feeling. Feelings fluctuate. Posture endures. When your posture is one of willingness and attentiveness, assistance remains active even during uncertainty. As you move forward from this moment, understand that you are not walking alone. Support has been activated, not because you earned it, but because you responded. Response is what heaven honors. Obedience is what angels support. There is a reason this message has stayed with you instead of passing through like so many others. Not every message lingers. Not every word presses inward. When something continues to echo after it is heard, it is because it carries confirmation. This part is not meant to persuade you. It is meant to help you recognize what has already been happening within you. Confirmation does not arrive as force, it arrives as recognition. If this message was meant for you, there are signs that go beyond emotion. One of the clearest signs is inner resonance. Not excitement alone, but a steady sense of this applies to me. Even when parts of it feel uncomfortable, something within you acknowledges its truth. That acknowledgement is not self-judgment. It is inner witness. It is the quiet agreement between your spirit and what is being spoken. Another confirmation is persistence. You may have tried to dismiss this message, but it returned in thought. Certain phrases replayed. Certain ideas stayed present longer than expected. This persistence is not coincidence. Truth lingers because it seeks response. What is not meant for you fades quickly. What is meant for you stays until it is addressed. You may also notice that this message intersects directly with your current season. Not with your past alone, and not with some distant future, but with where you are right now. It touches questions you have been carrying privately. It addresses hesitation you may not have spoken aloud. That specificity is not general encouragement. It is targeted confirmation. Another sign is emotional clarity rather than confusion. Even when the message is serious, it brings a strange sense of grounding. Fear agitates. Truth steadies. If you feel more aware rather than more anxious, more sober rather than more overwhelmed, that is confirmation. Heaven's voice brings clarity, even when it brings correction. There is also the confirmation of peace beneath the weight. This may sound contradictory, but it is consistent. When something is divinely aligned, it can feel heavy yet peaceful at the same time. Heavy because it matters. Peaceful because it is true. If this message has carried that combination, it is another sign that it was meant for you. Some confirmations arrive through memory. As you listen, moments from your life may surface unexpectedly. Times when you felt prompted but delayed. Moments when you sensed guidance but chose comfort. These memories are not accusations. They are context. They help you see the pattern this message is addressing. Confirmation often connects present truth with past experience. You may also sense a renewed desire to realign. Not pressure, but willingness. A quiet resolve forming. The desire is not self-generated motivation. It is response. It indicates that something within you has shifted from resistance to openness. Heaven responds to that shift immediately. Another form of confirmation is timing. You did not encounter this message during a season of ease, but during a season of decision, weariness, or transition. Heaven speaks most clearly at thresholds. If you are standing between what was and what will be, this message is not interrupting your journey. It is guiding it. Pay attention as well to what is not happening. If this message were not meant for you, you would likely feel indifference, irritation, or dismissal. Instead, you have stayed. You have listened. You have continued. The continuation is itself confirmation. Attention follows relevance. It is important to understand that confirmation does not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels quiet and unavoidable, like a truth you cannot unsee once it is revealed. That kind of confirmation is often the most reliable, because it does not rely on emotion to sustain it. You may still have questions. Confirmation does not eliminate questions, it anchors direction. You may not know every step ahead, but you know enough to stay attentive. That is all that is required at this stage. Guidance unfolds as response continues. If this message is for you, you will notice a heightened sensitivity after this moment. Conviction will come faster. Discernment will feel sharper. Discomfort with misalignment will increase. These are not burdens. They are protections. They indicate that responsiveness had been restored. Do not rush to resolve everything immediately. Confirmation invites steadiness, not haste. Allow what has been revealed to settle. Let it shape your posture. Let it guide your next choice. You are not being asked to leap ahead, only to walk forward with awareness. Most importantly, understand this. Confirmation is not the end of the message. It is the beginning of alignment. It assures you that you are not imagining this moment, not overthinking it, and not alone in it. Heaven confirms what it intends to continue. If you have felt seen, addressed, and redirected through this message, that is not coincidence. That is confirmation. And confirmation carries responsibility, not heavy but sacred. To stay attentive, to remain responsive, to walk forward instead of away. What follows will gather everything that has been spoken and anchor it in assurance, hope, and restoration, because warning was never the final word. As this message comes to its close, it is important that you do not carry it as a weight, but as a direction. Everything that has been spoken was never meant to leave you anxious or uncertain about your place with God. Warning was not the destination. Awakening was. Correction was not the goal. Restoration was. From the very beginning, this message has been anchored in love that refuses to let you drift without direction. You are not standing at the edge of loss. You are standing at the edge of renewal. The reason heaven spoke with urgency is because what is ahead of you matters deeply. You were never being pushed away. You were being called closer. And if you have stayed, listened, reflected, and responded inwardly, then something has already shifted. Alignment does not always announce itself loudly, but it always produces peace beneath the seriousness. Understand this clearly. Heaven's guidance has not been revoked. The door has not been sealed. The voice has not been silent. What was required was attention, and you gave it. What was required was responsiveness, and you are choosing it. That is enough for restoration to begin. God does not demand perfection from returning hearts. You respond to sincerity. Whatever fear you may have felt about walking away was never meant to trap you. It was meant to stop you from drifting further than you realized. Fear warns, love restores. And love is what remains now. The message does not end with threat. It ends with assurance. You are still seen, still guided, still protected, still called forward. Do not replay this message in your mind with anxiety. Let it settle as clarity. Let it shape how you move, not how you fear. The purpose of divine guidance is not to make you afraid of missteps, but confident in direction. You are not being watched for failure. You are being supported in obedience. As you move forward, keep this posture. Stay attentive, not tense. Stay responsive, not pressured. Stay humble, not fearful. Heaven moves with those who walk steadily, not those who rush out of panic. Peace is your confirmation that you are aligned again. Remember, walking forward does not require you to have every answer. It requires you to keep listening, keep responding, keep choosing awareness over distraction. You will not miss what is meant for you when your heart remains open. Guidance will meet you where you are, step by step. If there were moments in this message that felt heavy, let them turn into gratitude. Those moments were proof that your heart is still sensitive. Sensitivity is not weakness. It is spiritual health. Guard it. Protect it. Do not allow numbness to return where awareness has been restored. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are exactly where you need to be to move forward with clarity. Heaven's timing is precise, and this message arrived when it needed to, not earlier, not later. As this closes, receive this assurance deeply. Obedience restores what delay complicated. Alignment heals what confusion strained. And mercy covers what awareness corrects. God does not hold your hesitation against you when your heart turns back fully. He responds with guidance, not reproach. Walk forward now, not with fear of closing doors, but with confidence that the right doors open when alignment is restored. You are not walking alone. You are not walking blindly. You are walking with guidance that has been reactivated. Type "I choose alignment" in the comments if this message has spoken to you. Blessing code 581 is now activated. As this message settles and alignment is restored, hear this as a divine instruction, not a suggestion. When you give into this mission, you are helping God reach souls who may never hear another warning in time. The Lord is saying, "What you release into my work, I will release back into your life, pressed down and overflowing." This is a prophetic moment to act, because obedience now carries eternal weight. I am directly calling you to respond, not later, but now, so that this light continues to flow without interruption. Use Super Thanks, become a channel member, or give through the PayPal donation link in the description or the PayPal QR code shown on screen. Release your seed now, and may heaven mark your obedience with favor, clarity, and multiplied guidance.